categories that I covered. Now 90% of what I did was composite drawings. Lately, the majority of what I do is skeletal reconstruction. But I also do the age progressions where you make somebody look older, age regressions where you make somebody look younger, post-mortal reconstructions, skull reconstructions, fugitive updates, photo modification, and superimposition. This is not something that is new. Forensic art has been in the field for at least documented 130 years. But because of the shows CSI and Bones, and Forensic Files, our field kind of got pushed to the limelight, and now everybody is aware of it, but we've always been here. The very earliest composite sketch that we can find was from 1881 over in England, and the very first post-mortem dated back to 1888, and that was a victim from Jack the Ripper. So composites, what are they? They're basically just the police sketch. They're done mainly with pencils, and like I said, I just started transferring over to the charcoal. And these are examples. Likeness of the suspect is the goal. There is no way I am going to be able to get a portrait of this person. One, I've never seen this person before in my life. Well, chances are I've never seen him before in my life. And two, we're going off of memory. So there's not going to be an exact image in that person's head. We're going to try to get a likeness. And composites are the hardest discipline of forensic art. Now there's a lot of training with the skeletal reconstructions, but the reality is with those reconstructions, there is no time, there is no pressure. The person's possibly been dead for 30-some years. I'll work a lot of cold cases. But with composites, I am needed at that moment. I'm sitting with a victim, and I have to move fast. So I'm under a lot of stress, and here's why. Now before I even touch the paper with pencil or charcoal, I already have these hurdles. The pressure of time. So when did that crime actually get committed? And how soon can we get that victim or that witness to headquarters? It could be a day, it could be a week. So the longer, obviously, it goes on, they're going to start forgetting a lot of the things that they saw. And now that also goes with memory. The perception of what they saw. As you guys all know, if you witness the same traffic accident, everybody's going to have a different story, a different version of what that car looked like. And the same thing happens with composite sketches. What they think they saw, we might be able to get that on paper perfect, but is that what they really saw? So when you see sketches, take them with a grain of salt, because it's not a portrait, and two, it's impossible to get anything that close anyway. Again, before I even touch the paper, I have supervisors coming down on me. We need this sketch done. What if the guy had glasses or sunglasses on with a hat and a bandana over his face? Do you think doing a composite sketch is going to help? Not really. But the supervisors want something to put in that case to go out to the media, and they're requesting it. So I still have to do that sketch, even if it makes me look bad. The media. It could be 5 o'clock, and they're calling saying, or 4 o'clock, they're calling saying, we want it on the 5 o'clock news. So I got to work quick. And then public criticism. I get it. When these things go on the news, we get so much backlash of how horrible they look. So that's even before I start drawing. So I have all that going on in my head. Now when the victim or the witness sits down with me, now I'm dealing with, on top of this, word descriptions. I've had people come in and say, well, he had a horse face. Well, what does that mean? What you have in your mind may not be what I have in my mind for what a horse face looks like. So I have to get over that. The uniqueness of that suspect. Am I capturing what they're trying to tell me? Is that the correct hat? Is it the correct texture? Ethnicity. You can describe somebody with the same eyes, eyebrows, nose, mouth, ears, but on one guy, I have to make him look black. The same description, oh, he's a white guy, or this one, he's Hispanic, or he's Asian. Am I making that person represent the ethnicity of what they're trying to capture? Victim, witness, emotion. So while I'm doing all this, I'm dealing with people that are hysterical, they're upset, they're mad, and I gotta try to keep them calm down enough to do a sketch with me. 9 times out of 10, they don't want to be at police headquarters sitting with me. They want to be home with their family. They just went through a very traumatic event. So the last one is the hardest, is trying to keep that victim or witness involved with the sketch. So while I'm drawing, I'm talking about, so you have any kids? What do you do for a living? Just to keep them entertained. Because like I said, they don't want to be there. So while under all of this, I have to probably do a sketch within 2 hours. After about 30 minutes, I start to lose the victim or witness. They are losing interest, so I got to move fast. And with the witness perception, you have to take into account how old are they, what was the angle that they saw the suspect in. Because if they're sitting on the floor and they said, this guy just had a big chin, well, of course he would, because that's what they're seeing. But in reality, he may not actually have a big chin. I've had 2 cases where I had, I think it was like 12 or 13 as a victim. And then the very next day, the suspect hit another house, and my victim was in her 80s. So on both cases, based on the MO and the case itself, they're describing the same person. But to a 13-year-old, she says, oh my God, he's old, which could be 40. To the 80-year-old, she's saying, oh, he was young, which could be 40. So you got to kind of take that into consideration. Lighting. What was the lighting conditions? A lot of video surveillance tapes, they may portray a particular image, but in reality it's not really what you're seeing. For example, with this, A and B, which one's darker? A. What if I told you they're the same color? You believe me? Mm-hmm. Hold your finger over the middle line. It is the same exact color. So again, with sketches, I have to take that into consideration. Was he black or was he white? It's all the perception of the victim. So, having that in mind, when I go into a composite sketch, my drawing ability gets cut in half right off the bat. So I'm under a lot of stress. Like I said, I gotta move fast. So the one on the left, the normal drawing, the ones on the right are real composites. And you can see the difference in level under stress. They're not going to be good. And really, we don't want them too detailed. We want to leave room for interpretation. If I have somebody that looks as detailed as this guy, you're going to look exactly for that guy. But if I leave a lot of the shading out, he may be bony, he may have thicker or fuller cheeks. It doesn't matter. It's up to you as the viewer to try to interpret that. If they resemble the person, which is all we're trying to do, then it's up to the public to call in and see if we can get the person identified. Composite art is not fine art. Like I said, our drawing ability gets cut in half. This is Detective Paul Moody from Florida. Clearly, he's an incredible fine artist. He does portrait work in pastels, but during a composite sketch, look how drastically his skill level drops. But it still does the job. It still resembles the suspect, and that's the purpose. We're not here to look good. We're here to document what that person is seeing on paper, not in words, but through a picture. That's the whole purpose of it. Another example, this is Larry Booty from New Jersey. Fine art versus composite art. So you can't really judge us as far as can we draw or can we not draw based off media or based off the images that go out. So understanding the composite, what people think we do. A lot of people, when they come in as victims or witnesses, they automatically assume they're sitting across from me. And they think that I have this board, and I do this sketch, and they're describing them, and I flip around, and it's completed, and they're like, oh my God, that's the guy. That is impossible. I cannot do that. Basically, the person is sitting beside me the entire time, and they are criticizing every single mark that I make. If it's wrong, it's wrong. There's no way I can get proportions and everything about that guy perfect on the first try. So how our department started out with a lot of departments, we use this system called the Identikit. And as you can see, it's broken down into different tabs, and it's eyes, nose, ears, hair. And it was up to each patrol officer to meet up with their victim because they had these kits in their trunks to assemble the sketch. So they take these clear foils, as you can see on the bottom, they overlap each other. And when the victim says, oh, okay, that looks like the guy or girl, they have to carefully run it over to the copy machine, make a copy, and that was their composite. And sometimes they look choppy like that, depending on what image you're pulling from, or they could look a little bit better. But in all honesty, they're really not that great. We did obviously start out like this, but then Karen, her last name. She was a detective in our department. Didn't really have any formal training. Said, well, I can do a lot better than what those things are doing. I can actually draw. So she started with her own cases, and she drew with the victim or the witness described. And she actually transferred our department from the identikit system into drawing them by hand, and we've been continuing it ever since. Again, this is Steve Mancusi and I. We're teaching together in Wisconsin, and this is the ideal sketch position. They're going to be beside me, but initially they're going to be a little bit further away, because I want to get the overall description first and sketch it down. It takes me 5 minutes to get everything down on paper, and then I bring them in close to me to have everything rearranged. The reason for this is the way that the mind processes. When we look at a face, we look at it holistically, meaning that we look at the entire face at the same time. Recognition is based off of spatial relationship from the eyes, the nose, like the facial triangle, in relationship to the ears, and how everything is placed. If I drew just eyes on a paper, you're not going to be able to tell if that is correct because you have nothing to compare it to. You don't know if they're spaced too far or too close together. So here is an example of how composite sketch is done. So the proportional stage, like I said, is 5 minutes long. I sketch it on based on just the verbal of how they're describing the person to me. And then a little bit further along, they'll get into the details. Oh, I remember their hair parted on the left-hand side, and their eyebrows arched a little bit more. So we start getting into the details until we get it to about that level. And again, the victim or the witness is watching the entire time. And at the very end, I take everything that they told me and try to make it look like a person. Try to make everything mesh together so it looks natural. We will use reference photographs. The reason for this is it's a lot easier to recognize than it is to describe. If you guys are taking a test, you want fill in the blank or multiple choice. Multiple choice because you can pick it out. And the same thing applies to the face. So we will use that when they flip through and say those eyes, those ears, whole 9 yards. And like I said, the placement is the absolute key to the composite sketch. So those first 5 minutes when we're doing that initial drawing, if that's off, the entire sketch is going to be off. I did this a lot too. The computer-aided software that's out there, I hear that computers are taking away the jobs of the artists. And forensic art is a dying field. None of those are true. First off, let's say computers do take over the composites, which they never will. They don't do anything with skulls. They don't do anything with age progression. Everything else that I do, they don't even touch. And lately, forensic art has been more on my plate than ever before. Just to give you an idea, in internal affairs, I would say we generally handle 4 or 5 cases at a time, which is normal. Forensic art, I do about 30. So it's a lot. Again, this is the reason why we don't use the computer-aided software. Because when you're sitting down with the software, they want you to pick out eyes from the eye page. And then you go to the noses, and you start to assemble the sketch. Well, you need to look at the face as a whole to understand if it's off or not. So this system does not actually work. We don't use it here in Baltimore County at all. And here's just an example that they don't even look realistic. I mean, the top one, I really don't know if it's a guy or a girl. And another reason with this software, again, here's my son, I use this everything. This software here has pretty much the same age range. So what if you have a juvenile committing a crime? Can you make them look younger from the program? No. What if they're, this is probably rare, but like 75 years old out there committing armed robberies? That software is not going to be able to age anybody either. The ability to copy, that comes more into play with reconstructions than with doing composites, unless you're trying to describe logos or tattoos where you're get things exact. So you have to be able to take an image and be able to replicate it. Computers cannot do that. So obviously the big one's my drawing, and I drew off that little photograph. And even with the computer software, the user that's using that program has to have knowledge of the face. And unique items such as jewelry, they're very identifiable. So if you have an unidentified person, you want to put that jewelry of what they were last seeing on them. Computers cannot really do that. And the artist's ability is completely limited by the victim's ability. I can only draw what you tell me to draw. And it's very frustrating because I have somebody who has no idea how to draw a face and telling me how to draw one. So anatomically, things are not correct. And their version of an eye is a football with like the little lines to show the iris. That's an eye to them. Well, I know there's a lot more involved with that, and to make it look somewhat decent, I would draw like the eyelid and make it look like it's round. They're like, I don't remember that top line. Well, obviously everybody has eyelids, but because they don't want it on the paper, I have to erase it. So we're back to the very basic eye because that's what they understand how to draw. So that's how my sketches go out. How close can we get to a suspect? Depends on that victim or that witness. It's not solely up to the artist. I love when they come in and they say there was something unique about that suspect. When they come in and say, he was average, they come out looking horrible, and they could probably be anybody, to be honest with you. But when they have unique hairstyles, or they have tattoos all over their face, or moles, burn marks, that's what's going to make the composite a lot better and a lot more identifiable. So with the reference books where they flip through and look at eyes, nose, and mouth, there are these codes. I know you probably can't see it, but it's like A13, J412, whatever code is under that picture, I just jot it down because I have two sets of books. The victim or witness looks through the one, I have the same exact copy, and I start drawing. That way it kind of speeds up the process. So I document what they're telling me because sometimes they're quick and they just keep flipping through pages. So as a test, to show that it's not completely up to the artist, I went to the FBI Academy. We got this code sheet, and they said, this will be a real investigation. We're not telling you who drew it, where it's from, but I want you to take those codes and create that image, which is what I did. I came up with the image in red, and Ray Rozicki came up with the image in yellow. This is Timothy McVeigh. Now, when Ray actually did his sketch and it got circulated, Timothy McVeigh was captured on a traffic stop from somebody who recognized him off the composite. But when you put Timothy McVeigh and the composite side by side, I think he nailed the guy. I think he did a fantastic job. But he got a lot of flack from media and from the public saying, that looks nothing like the guy. Well, realistically, I pretty much came up with the same thing that he did. So it's not us that we didn't get the guy, it's what that victim or what that witness remembers. Practice composites is just an example of how close realistically they can get. Now, the girl that described this composite to me did not even pick out any of the features. So she had another friend pick out from the catalog an image, or come up with, obviously it's Edward Norton, but took that image, came up with all these codes and gave it to her. So she has no idea who she's drawing either, and she comes and describes that person to me based off the images. And we still got pretty close. It would be enough to identify him, and that's the purpose. Here's some real cases, just to give you an idea. They're not the best work. I don't care. They did the job. That's all it's meant to do. They're not here to make us look good. They're here to get the criminal off the street. So, close enough. They're just an aid for law enforcement. With sketches, they are not probable cause. So you cannot go out with a sketch and have an officer go, oh my God, you look just like the guy, and throw the cops one. It's enough to stop them and get them identified, but you still have to work that investigation to prove or disprove that that person is or is not the suspect. Some are really good. This is Larry in New Jersey. Nailed the guy. Here's Paul again from Florida. Perfect. George Molina in Texas. Doesn't even look like the sketch, but the white background is a sketch. The suspect, obviously, is mugshot when he was captured. So they work. These things actually do work in law enforcement. Anytime there is a high-profile investigation, does anybody remember this case when Violet Ripken was allegedly kidnapped?
Right.
Well, I was out of town, and at the time, the city artist, who had since quit in January, he was working and available. I was in Wisconsin, and they said, you need to come back from Wisconsin to do the sketch because of the counterfeit. So I said, well, I can't, but call the city artist, and they refused to do it. They wanted me to do the case. So I did the case. It's a very high profile. This is put out on billboards on I-95. But the point of this is sketches generally create an interest with the public. So for high profile investigations, they want to get that image out there. So of course we'll do sketch. And what's that? No. But I won't go into that.
Okay.
Even if they tear my sketches apart, now this is a good example. Is anybody here on Facebook or familiar with Facebook? So if you see an article get posted and you comment on that article, it shows up in your newsfeed, correct? Just showing that you commented on it. So even if they say, that is the worst police sketch I have ever seen in my life, what they're doing is actually publicizing that sketch to their friends and to other people. So they can criticize me all they want. They're actually helping us out by doing that job. Video surveillance composites. They're not ideal. And they'll actually send me sketch or video where you can't see anything. And they go, can you clean this up? No.
What do you want to
Yeah. Look at race and gender.
Just like Frank Valley.
He's actually a real suspect from Towson. He was doing several bank robberies. The reason why, I mean, you can identify him off these police video surveillance images, but the whole point of this at that time was we have a system where you can run facial images through a software and see if it hits on anybody that resembles them. But in order for that system to work, they're picking up on key features in that face. One of them being the eyes. So you cannot see his eyes or where they exactly sit. So we came up with this sketch to hopefully resemble him. Ran into the system, we still didn't have any luck. But they did circulate the sketch, and he was caught right before going to another bank.